the deception of the matrix on many, many layers. It's like, okay, so some people can't stay in the program. So the ones that can't stay in the program because they have some kind of inkling, their DNA dance is nudging and they need to accommodate that next level of DNA dance. In comes the next level of inception, which is, yes, matter of fact, you are a slave. Matter of fact, it's these beings that this and this and this, and they do that, that, and that, and that. So, okay, you get validated that you're enslaved. You get validated that there's these unseen beings that are having influence on us. You know, that you get validated that these unseen beings, even though they don't have power in this reality, they have a lot of power in this reality because humans don't exercise their own power in this reality. They let these other beings influence them and how they create things with their thoughts and feelings, right? And then you're hopeless, and now you have to work through that hopelessness. How do you reclaim your power in a soup that looks like it's hopeless? Because no one wants to wake up to the fact that there's these beings called archons doing what they're doing. No one wants to admit that there's ETs and interdimensional interplay. Well, until now. I mean, now that we're coming into a time of waking up, there's more. They're a lot more willing to accept that. But what's beyond that? Okay, you realize, oh, wait a minute, it all begins and ends with me. I am the one that's investing into my victim story. I am the one that is investing into my whatever story. Okay, then you have to face yourself. How do I and why do I invest in that? You see? And this is the magic key to the whole thing. This is, once you get past that point of, you know, that inception that you're enslaved and it's hopeless. Once you get past that, then you got to really own yourself on such a deep level that it takes the rest of your life to invest in. Okay, because there's so many layers to it. And this is why I'm a huge proponent, and everybody in Light Body would testify to this, right? We're huge proponents for ancestral healing, ancestral clearing. Okay, that's because you can radically accelerate the you know, can liberate yourself from the deep subconscious programming that you've inherited from your elders. You can radically accelerate your liberation from that by cleaning up their unresolved stuff. And if you guys really look deep into the family stories, if that's available to you, many of you will realize that you're reenacting life scenarios that ancestors of yours have had, you know. um, and this is the problem with us losing our history, because when you don't know who your great grandparents are and the kinds of trials and tribulations they went through and the different stories and narratives that were in their lives, you don't even get the chance to recognize that, oh my God, I'm reliving the story of my great grandfather. I'm reliving the story of my great uncle. Right? Um, and, you know, and this is, and if we did have these stories, we would see how we are repeating them, you know. My So when I was younger, let's see, monarchy time, teenage time, I was very hot-headed. You know, I was patient until I wasn't. So if you're an animal, I had infinite patience with you. I loved you and it was great, right? But if you were a human and I found you annoying, it was like my fuse was very short. And I didn't like bullies. And as a result of that, I became really aggressive towards people who I thought were bullying me, right? And so I remember my grandmother telling me that I really needed to get a handle on my temper, and that temper was going to cause me problems in life. And then I had some other life situations reflect to me that, you know, my temper was really not going to get me; it was going to cause trouble. So fast forward decades later, my uncle goes through a period in his life where he starts researching the genealogy of that side of the family. This is my mother's side of the family. And wouldn't you know it, that I had an ancestor coming from Scotland, landing in Virginia, who had a reputation for being hot-headed, and his his temper got to such a brought him to such a place he had to flee for his life because he created vendettas. People became very upset with him, and he had to flee into the mountains, which of course is what led to the settling of the rest of the family, because he goes into deep into Appalachia, and is part of finding one of the first, or beginning one of the first Presbyterian churches back in the day, so this was a story that was lost in antiquity, and of course he found God, right, and he transformed his life in the way that he transformed it, but he had to ruin his life with his temper in order to create a new life, in order to get forced to create a new life. Okay, so I'm hearing this story however many generations later, and for some reason I'm really resonating with this guy having this temper, and because I just didn't have patience for people who were unkind, or who were bullies. It's like I just didn't have tolerance for that. And if you think about the Scots and what they went through with the UK, with the British, there was massive oppression, and they were really, really, really not treated well for many generations. And then they would get an opportunity to flee into Ireland. And then that also became a whole oppressive story, because you have the Orange Irish against the Green Irish. This is the Protestant against the Catholics. And that was a huge conflict. And then they come over to this country, and then again, more conflict, So, we need to understand these stories so we can recognize what's unresolved in our ancestries, so we can realize that what the life that we're living right now is not actually our lives. It's the unresolved crap from our ancestors. It's the unresolved energy that our ancestors invested their life force into, So it's hugely liberating to recognize that the trials and tribulations that you have in this life didn't start with you. It's not you. Yes, you were born into this family, but what you're working through is not yours necessarily. It's what your family has given to you. It's the it's the unresolved stuff, like I said.